Friday Daily coming to last Spirit and coffee. Ooh, I got my coffee here. Yum yum yum. Dum 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 dum. Ah, so good. Okay. Woo. I'm having a pretty exciting morning. It's already eventful. And it's Friday, so happy Friday to those who may or may not be keeping track of the day. I sometimes forget what day it is. I have a for my normal work. This is not work for me. This is my reflection, beautiful, great time to spend with you guys. Um, but my normal work, I have a meeting every Tuesday, and one day I was like, oh, have a happy Monday or Wednesday or Tuesday, or what day is it? I didn't even know what day it was. So for those of you who don't know, are not keeping track of time and the date, it is oh, I don't know what day. It's like May something, but I know that it's Friday. So there you go. So anywho, let's get started. Um sort of been a lot of reflection, a lot of looking at what is going on, what is happening in the world, and sort of started to, like, a friend today, and I kind of want to talk about this, and I want to talk about it not in the sense to ignite some sort of battlefield, right? Because I feel like Facebook has become this weird platform. Like my personal page is, and I read the stuff, and it's like everybody's fighting, they're at war with each other, and it's almost become like a cyber war. And I'm like, why? Good morning, Rose. Why are people being so hateful? Why can't people just respect each other's opinions? Why are people name calling? Did we like go back to high school, or to me it's like I see a bunch of people just behaving in these weird ways, and that's okay. That's part of, I get it, it's part of humanity, it's part of life, it's part of us not really understanding what entirely is happening. There's still pieces that have not been revealed to us, pieces that we don't know, storylines that are happening that we can't control. We can't be a part of every conversation. We don't know what's going on everywhere at every time. So how do we formulate sort of an understanding of the phenomena that's happening around us? How do we start to engage and understand what we're seeing in front of us? Some people may be confused. Some may like, I have the answer. I know what's going on in my life. Again, it is to bring you back to your own life and to figure out how do you get back on track for yourself. I know what I'm doing for me. What are you guys doing for you? But I did sort of recognize this morning something just, it sort of clicked, not sort of, but it just clicked. And I had been seeing it, but it's like every single thing about this topic, right? Especially here in the US. I don't know how other countries are operating, and I don't know if the same conversations are happening in other countries. Um, but what happened is everything that is around this particular situation or scenario leads to politics. It's almost like you can't get around it. It's so weird. Every subject on this leads to politics. Every single subject. And I'm like, why is that? Why? It's a question. Why is it that every time you bring up this scenario, good morning, Suze, every time we're bringing up this virus, every time it's like everything leads to political, everything. So, and I thought about this because it's frustrating for me because there are some people that don't have political affiliation. Okay. There are some people who don't necessarily agree with the political arena. I myself can tell you from personal experience being involved um, in politics in this tiny minute way, right? Because I do, like I said, I work in tobacco prevention, and having to go to the legislature and all this stuff, and just being flabbergasted by the stuff that you hear in the rooms, and the greed and the money and all this stuff that you see firsthand, that I personally have no desire to be part of a political party. I have no desire to be involved in politics. But it is ingrained in the very fabric of our life. So to deny it or to pretend that it doesn't exist would be foolish, right? Because the reality is it does exist. However, there are some people who don't have a political affiliation. I don't get involved in political conversation. I don't, but it just seems like you're almost forced into that conversation with this thing that's going on. It just like there's no way around it. And I'm like, why? Why? And then I was like just questioning. So I did actually ask the question because I'm curious to understand why people think for themselves that this is happening, not out of being cruel to one another, but out of curiosity. Why? Why does everything COVID lead to political? Why isn't it leading to public health? Like, I'm confused, right? So then I said, okay, fine. Well, it doesn't matter at this point right now. We can't say it's not that it's irrelevant because it's happening. Like you just search everything, it leads you right to to politics. And I thought, well, I personally, and this platform is not a political platform. We're not here. I'm not here to talk about politics. I'm not here to. That's not. I just personally think it's all crazy, right? I think politics is crazy. That's all of it. Okay. And it's a storyline that I don't choose to live into or play out. So, my question is, how do we look at this from a different perspective? How do we engage this entire situation from a different perspective? Now, I would say that we can't exclude politics because that's not, you can't do that because it does lead to everything politics. But how do we start to like use a different perception, a different lens to look at this phenomena? How do, what, there is scientific stuff going on, but everything that you read on the scientific method or scientifically what's happened leads you right back to politics. Okay. So, I started looking into the hydroxychlorophyll and all this stuff, right? Just for my own personal stuff, just to understand for myself, not for any other reason, but because I'm curious about everything and I'll read about everything. And it led to political stuff. And I'm like, I just want to know about the freaking medicine. I don't, so, but because it's so ingrained with what's going on with COVID, of course, it leads to some kind of political thing. And I'm like, I don't want to know about that. I want to know about the science behind it, right? What is it? And don't get me wrong, it did tell me like what are the side effects, blah, blah, blah. But there's always this disclaimer that anything that's COVID always has something connected to it, always leads you back to politics. And I'm like, this is crazy. Why always politics? So I thought, okay, and this just happened this morning, this epiphany of how everything is so ingrained in politics. I'm like, what about people who are not affiliated? Okay. My soul has been possessed by a demon. How do I get rid of it? Well, I can talk to you about that in just a moment. But I don't know if you're a troll or if you're serious about actually um understanding what a demon is and how you might be possessed by it. And I don't know what your story is. So I'd have to find out more information, okay? So probably a troll, which is okay. We have trolls. I have trolls all the time. And we love you, trolls. We need the darkness to have the light. So good morning to you. Um, and thank you for calling me coffee lady, because I am. Okay. Sorry, the ones on Podbean, my Facebook is probably being attacked by trolls, which is fine. Um, so how do we see it from a different perspective or a different light? And for me, because this is spirit and coffee, I'm always looking at it from the God sense, the spiritual sense, the universal perspective of how do we engage this from a different way of seeing life. um we know that science is a part of it, and I suppose that we can see it from different perspectives of if we looked at the integration of all those. And I talked the other day about integrating all different sciences, and how do you integrate the different thoughts of understanding, right? So if we had psychology, how would we look at it from the psychological perspective? How would we then look at it from the um um the natural sciences, and how would we look at it from the social sciences, basically. And those two perspectives are sort of integrated, and how do we do that, right? Instead of looking at it from only the lens of politics, right? The lens of like integration of all. And so bridging together all of these facets. So spirit, of course, being one, and looking at it from a religious perspective. And I don't mean spirit and religion are synonymous, right? Because this is about esoteric wisdom. So I'm going to try to interconnect it all and make, sort of bridge the gaps, right? And you guys know I do this all on sometimes I just do it all right away, and then I'm like, okay, here's how it can be molded or changed. Okay, so we have the psychological perspective of how the behavioral health, the programming, the mind, how the mind is engaging in the situation, how each individual has their own way of sort of playing with this putty that's there, right? So if we saw this sort of information as putty, we're kind of playing with it, and it's taking us through this sort of psychological downward spiral or upward spiral or whatever spiral it's taking you on, right? And then we have the scientific part of it. The scientific part of it tells us, what is the data? What does the data tell us about this particular thing? And I did read something on the book that I was reading. I wasn't even looking for it, right? I'm reading this book. I've been reading this book for quite some time, a little bit at a time, for my own personal health reasons, because I have iron issues and I'm trying to fix that, right? I'm trying to figure out how to fix my iron issues. And so I was just reading, and they talked about viruses, and it came up. I wasn't asking for it. It just showed up in the book that I was reading. And I said, oh, interesting. This is scientific, right? This is scientific data. This was written a long time ago. It wasn't written, let me see what year this book was written, by the way, the one that I've been reading out of. Um, and let's see, it was written in 2005. So in 2005, when he was writing this, he writes this about, and this is just scientific, right? Um, in one, we discuss the common cold and difficulties in biomedicine. Biomedicine has with it. This difficulty can be traced to the complex and diverse nature of viruses, and the fact that they do not follow predictable patterns. By not following predictable patterns, it is very difficult for viruses to be controlled because they seem to have a mind of their own and replicate at will within the body. Meaning, so in my head, I'm going, well, why are they trying to predict what's going to happen with this thing? Why are they trying to control it? Okay, so those are questions, right? I'm not saying that I know the answers. I'm just questioning based on the information I read why. And that takes you down a rabbit hole that you're going to have to read, right? Good morning, Artie. London, may God bless you as well. Let me know how things are out in London. I'd love to hear about that. Jojo, good morning. Um, so there's the scientific perspective of it, right? And so people will start looking at the numbers, but notice that everybody that goes down this oh, I can't even speak, scientific rabbit hole, you know, it ends up leading to politics. And I'm like going, what the heck? Okay, fine, leave it. So you have the psychological aspect, you have the scientific, good morning, Auntie Christine, the scientific aspect. You have the social sciences of how the economics are, well, let's just say economics, not, so we look at the economic factors of what's going on. That's another thing that's being hit, right? Again, it leads to politics. Um, very sad around here. Let me just read what this person out in London said. Very sad around here. People are being furloughed. Yeah, and others without any income. Very sad. Those who work supposed to wear mask and use hand sanitizer every time. Yeah, my let me just put this out there before I continue. I do want to give prayers, love, to the people that are without work at this time and that are struggling. I just it hurts me to the core that I wish that I could do something to fix everything, right? I do know from what I would call the spiritual perspective that the things will play out the way that they're supposed to, and that eventually people will be blessed with what they need to be blessed with, and believing and having faith, I think, is our strongest ally at this point. Faith that God's promise will be fulfilled, and I truly believe that, right? And so that is a belief of mine, um and I really hope that others have the same belief, because it's the one thing that can support us through this crazy um, kind of storm or whirlwind or chaos or tower or whatever you want to call it that we're going through. So I just ask that everybody on here pray for those individuals. Please pray for them. Pray for the people that are without work at this time. Pray for the families that are going through some mental issues, because that's what I'm talking about right now, is that there's so many facets, so many different perspectives that are being um, hit, right? It's not just one thing. Like, it's not just, people can say, well, it's the virus, but it's not just the virus. There's so many other things that are being um, broken down and picked apart, and it's basically to the core, the fabric of who we are. It's having us question. Not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It could be scary, it could feel, you could be afraid, but it's not bad. It's just part of life. Life is like that, right? It's very, we think it's certain, and we want to feel like it's certain, and we know that the sun comes up every day, and we're certain of that, right? We're certain of it. And if the sun didn't come up, we'd be like, what the hell happened? Why not? Because we're so certain of it. And now we recognize that things aren't certain when it comes to structures. They're very fragile. They only operate because we believe in them. Good morning, Doreen. I haven't seen you in a while. Good morning, Martha. I think I said good morning. But they work because why? They work because we believe that they're going to work. But we've seen our very systems crumble right in front of us, because now we don't believe that they work anymore. And the systems that are coming in, we want them to work. We want them to work. And they're not. It's not functioning right now. And that could be it's scary. It's like having a great machine, having this big grand machine, and the dependence upon this machine to work actually supports the very life that we have. And then something breaks in this machine. Now, here's the deal, because it is so ingrained in us to be survivors, we're going to learn how to either fix the machine or create a new one. And I say right now, we're creating a new machine, because the old one is broken, or somebody broke it, or whatever happened. Yeah, God is how we get rid of this. Yes, and that's from the bigger perspective. And that's, you get to that point eventually. Hopefully, people will get to that point, that it all leads back to God. It all leads back to, and I say God, you can say universe, whatever word you call it. I say Yahweh, probably the best word for me. But to lead back to source. Okay. Good morning, Scott. Um, by the way, Scott, I will be getting that information. I tried to, I'm totally off topic. I shouldn't be doing this, but you know me, sometimes I'm all over the place. The website stuff. Um, I couldn't get the link anyway. So there you go. A bit on that. Okay. So let's get back to what I was talking about. Sorry. Okay. Scroll. I do that all the time. Scroll. And then I go on a tangent. Okay. So we have these different ways of engaging, right? Different ways of engaging this situation. And right now, I think they pigeonhole us to start looking at politics. Every time you do something, it like pigeonholes you back to politics. I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. Let's look at the psychology behind it. Let's look at the economic impact on it. Let's look at these bigger issues and then try to integrate it into whole and say, okay, we know that there's a plan happening, and understanding these different things can sort of support us into going back into the spirit and remembering that we are one, we are connected, we are all interconnected, even though we seem very separated, which we are, right? We are, let's just say it this way, there's a web, okay, like a spider web, and we're all connected to that web, but on different sides. but everything that we do has a ripple effect, right? And it'll impact one or the other. We can see that what is happening right now is impacting all facets, right? The entire system itself is interconnected. And we see that once we break the fabric of it, that everything is impacted. Now, what was the source or the cause of all this breakdown, right? How does it truly break down? So we have all of these things. Now, the economic, right, impact that has happened has sort of integrated into the mindset of individuals, like this beautiful person who's talking um, from London. He's saying that people are sad because they're losing their jobs. That's economic impact that has led now to psychological impact. Okay. And then you have, beyond that, you have your psychological, scientific, right? So there's the science, and people are reading on the science. Then we have the social, which we're talking about people with maybe disabilities, people that are that live in low income housing. How are they doing? How are they getting the resources that they need? Then you're dealing with poverty, behavioral health. I mean, you're dealing with all of these facets, right? Good morning, Quad D. And all of that right there, all of that is embodied into one thing. And everything's leading back to politics. All of it. Like you can't even get away from it. So, how do we think outside of that? Number one, we did not create the plan. Number two, even though we think we can control the plan, we cannot. Whatever is to come is to come. That's up to God. Three, what can we control? This is critical. You can get a piece of paper. I've done it. And I said things I can control, things that I can't control. Okay. The things that I can control are my psychological well being, my physical well being. And guess what? Same for you. It's the same for you. Like you guys have the ability to figure out how you want to engage it. That leads us back to spirit, leads us back to God. We don't have to see this as a political thing. We don't have to see this as I want to fight my neighbor, as I want to cause chaos, as I want to be I don't want to support humanity. I want to support humanity. So how do I do that? Those are questions that you can ask yourself. How do I engage in this world right now the way it is and do it from a space that feels peaceful to me and tranquil to me? There are certain things that are out of our control, and you can get ingrained in the tiny minute things or the different thoughts, right? Like you can get ingrained in, well, they're not providing social services, they're not doing this, da, 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 right? You can't control that. Those are things you can't control. You can definitely have a voice about it, right? Because there is the political piece of it. Like I said, we can't leave that out. Where you become an advocate, or you start a coalition, or you go out and you say, "Here's what I want. These are my rights." Blah blah blah. You could do that, but can you control the outcome? Not necessarily. I'm going to tell you, I've done some advocacy for tobacco prevention. So only thing I've done advocacy for, it was part of my job. Okay. And I'm going to tell you right now that you're going to lose more than you're going to win when it comes to policies. It's not an easy thing, right? There's so many facets to politics. Can you control that? No, because we tried to pass a law over and over and over again and it just didn't get passed. And we had to wait a whole year. Could I control that? Right? Rule number one, put God in the center of all of this crazy. Yeah, I love that. Yes, put God first. Amen to that one. Put God first. Um, but here's the deal. Some people are not necessarily doing that. And so how do we get them back to God? Right? It's a big question that I ask. How do we get people back? So part of it, right? Because some people don't believe, and that's the thing. Some people don't believe. Some people have different beliefs. And I'm like, how do we get people My concern, how do I get people to understand that they're powerful, that they're enough, that they can get themselves grounded again, and that they can start to create something in their life, and even in circumstances that seem like there's nothing left, that they actually can. You guys can. That's the thing. You can. You have the power. You have the power to get yourself back. So I don't know who's experiencing what out there. You guys are, more than welcome to share. If you're going through hardships, hard times, sadness, whatever it is, know that you can come back to the spirit, right? Know that you can come back, that you can find your way back. Part of it is looking at what you can control and what you can't control. We can't control God's plan for sure. There's just no way. How could you? Just not. Whatever the universe plays out, whatever Yahweh plays out is going to be played out. How you engage that play, or if you saw it as a play, how do you engage the story? Things you can control: your mental health. How do you get yourself mentally stable and in a good place that allows you to create what it is that you choose to create beyond, or for survival? It could be for survival at this point, to create abundance in your life, which most people might be feeling that they're lacking at this point. How do you get yourself back there? Look at the things you can control. Mindset is so critical. Practices are critical. I always talk about practices. What are your daily practices? Okay. I'm going to tell you mine. I get up, I meditate. Okay. That's a daily practice for me. May not work for you. Maybe you get up and work out. Maybe you get up and you stretch. Maybe you get up and do some breath work. Maybe you get up and whatever it is, you pray. Meditation's prayer, right? Maybe you get up and you, I don't know, make coffee. Whatever your morning ritual is, stick to that, right? And stick to that. And that sort of sets the day up. It sets your day up to like, okay, cool. Like this sets my day up. I do this first and then I go and I work. Do what I'm I do what I'm supposed to be doing. Otherwise, I'd be on here all day with you guys because I love you guys. But it's asking yourself those questions, right? And then saying, okay, now what's next? What can I control? What can I control? What practices do I have throughout the day? What am I reading? What am I paying attention to? Is what I'm reading and paying attention to, is it supporting me to feel good, or do I feel terrible after? Do I have energy after I read what I read, or do I not have energy after I read what I read? Is it sucking my life force or giving me life force? This is an important question. Sometimes we get stuck in a rabbit hole that sucks the energy force out of us. And then we're stuck, seco, dry. Look at things that bring you life. And like yesterday, I had this beautiful, I mean, it was such a beautiful day, right? And I went for a walk with my mom. After I do these social media things, I disconnect from social media. First I pray, then clean. Oh yeah, cleaning's a good one. I like to clean too. That's a very fun practice. That helps me clear my mind. Um, I went for a walk with my mom and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful day. We went and walked to this little cafe that has coffee, bought her a little iced tea. And they had a little bench outside that we could sit on. We sat, we talked for a while. Then we walked up and read some historical platforms. Um, and and on the way, it was nice, right? It was nice. Hello, Mario. It was a beautiful time that I was able to engage with my mom. And it added value to my life. It gave energy to my life. It fed my life force. If you saw yourself as a blossom, a little lotus blossom, right? And you're sort of this lotus flower. And at the core of you, you're just wanting to sprout out, right? But you've come from all of this pain and suffering and hurt. And that's what the lotus is, right? It's under all the murk, and all the murk is there. And then all of a sudden, this beautiful flower just blossoms up to the sun. You can't get there if you're feeding yourself poison. Ask yourself, am I feeding myself poison? And by that, I mean what you're reading, what you're paying attention to. You can't control what's happening. I can't, if I could control it all, it would look vastly different, but I can't. And then when you speak up your mind now, it's a war. You can't even have an opinion now without people like attacking you like you're the like you're a demon or you're some, it's like, wow, really? Have we come to that? That we can't even have our own opinion and people can't just respect it and say, "Cool, I'm glad that you see it that way. That's awesome." Without getting angry and upset. Instead of just saying, "Okay, but are you happy? Is it serving you? And is your life fruitful?" Let's see, I feel the only thing I control is my life. Yeah, it is. And I believe it's up to each individual. Yes, it is. It is. And some people don't believe they have the control, the ability to control their life or to engage their life from a different way of being. Okay. And sometimes it's so deeply rooted in the subconscious mind and how we operate that it's not so easy to sort of transition over. And I get that. It takes practice. It takes years and years of practice. I practice every day, every single day. Sometimes it gets exhausting. Sometimes I have a headache, but it's an everyday practice. It's not just, it's like cleaning the house, right? It's not, you don't just clean once and then it's clean for months. No, you have to clean every single day. It's an everyday practice or it becomes a big mess, right? God controls all. He's a creator. Yes. Okay. So the things you can control, the things that you cannot control. I would say write a list. I did. I did it myself. Okay, that is so true because we have no control on the situation that happens to us, but we have control on how we respond to the situation. Yeah. Now, here's the deal. This is what makes this whole entire thing unique. And I'm going to go a little deeper for you, Mario. Or is it Mario? I have a godson named Mario. That to go a little bit deeper. So we can control how we respond, but here's the deal. Our response to the situation puts us on another, it's like you can't respond 100%. Well, I'm going to say this. I'm not saying that this is true for you, Mario, but when you do respond, it feels like 100 million projectiles come back at you, and now you're having to deal with that. And it's almost suffocating and drowning. And you're like, okay, how do I respond to the situation? Because it's so, how do we overcome that? Again, practices are critical. So, yes, we have response, but what is the response? And is the response serving us? If the response is to breathe in that moment, then breathe. Most people will get, like, if you got hit, let's just say for instance, you get somebody and you're saying something and then you get all of these mean hateful things coming at you, right? Or what you feel is mean and hateful, okay? Not doesn't mean that it is, but you feel like it is, okay? What is your natural response? Most people's natural response is to attack back. That's the natural human instinct, or to run. Well, we have a sympathetic system, so it could be fight, flight, or freeze, right? Depending on how you respond. There's a natural reaction that puts us into a state that's, it's good, it's there for a purpose. But when it's not that harmful, like for instance, talking about all these ideas, this is a psychological warfare that's happening right now. It has nothing to do with bombs. It has to do with our psychology. The very foundation of it is a warfare of psychology. It's like, let's battle each other. Who has the right answers? Who doesn't? So, in an attack, how do you respond? And Mario, the way you respond is going to be very different from the way I respond. And sometimes our response is going to totally be ego. We're going to want to fight back because we have an ego. But when we learn to accept the ego and say, you're not in the driver's seat today, and you can actually respond in love, There's a practice that comes in, and this is where they say there's a distinction between the master and the beginner. The master just knows how to practice faster, understands what practices work to put them in a state of harmony. Now, the Padawan has the same skill, but just may not be as well practiced at it or not understand 100% what practices work for them to put them back in a state of harmony. Okay. My goal is when life squeezes me, Jesus comes out, just like when you squeeze a lemon, lemon juice comes out. I like that. And then, so how do we do that? Like, what's the practice for Jesus to come out for you? What does that look like? Like, if someone's attacking you, if you have these opinions, and or you have your words or your perspective and you're speaking, and then someone just totally doesn't agree with what you're saying and totally starts to yell at you. Instantaneously, we get amnesia almost. Most people, I'm not saying you because I don't know you, Mario. You may be very well practiced at this, but some people will go, I'm going to attack you back. And their ego just totally takes over. And it's like, rawr, full on. I've had those moments before. Okay. Say that you will come back once his spirit calms down. Yeah. The resolved opinion, and say, wait, what is this first word you put? T ris or just rebuke the spirit of that person. Yeah, there's a beautiful good morning, Apostle. There's a beautiful sort of prayer that I listen to, I meditate to. Um it's Kadosh 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 Adonai Sabayoth, and means holy, holy Lord of all hosts. And it's just a beautiful thing, and they say that it is the song of the masters, that when you sing it you sort of dispel all of the negative energy, because the vibrational frequency of that particular prayer resonates in the heavens. So I listen to that. And you can even say it for yourself, okay? It goes, Kadosh, 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 Adonai, Sabaoth. And then they go on, Kadosh, 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 Adonai, Sabaoth. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Sabaoth. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Sabaoth. Okay, it's beautiful, and I'd say go look it up. It's Kadosh, 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 Adonai Sabaoth, and it's the holy, holy, holy Lord of all hosts. um Beautiful, 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 and brings us right back. Okay, I guess one good way is to renew my mind with the word of God and remember that God loves me as much as he loves my enemy. Amen to that. I love that, Mario. That's exactly it. That you love the enemy. That's the hard one. It's the hard one for people, for humans. It's hard for us because it is. I mean, it's just, it's not an easy one to just, it's a practice. We have to practice it. For some people, it comes naturally. For some, it's not so natural. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong. It's a practice, right? To love thy enemy, to be able to get slapped in the face and give the other cheek. Not because you're a sellout, but because you understand that their anger, their frustration is not about you. It's not about you. It's about their life. It's about them. There's something very, very internally in them that's suffering or hurting. And to recognize that, wow, for you to be able to slap me tells me that there's something inside of you that you're not happy with. When you're happy inside, you're not going to slap people. When I'm happy and joyful, I'm not thinking about slapping people. I'm thinking about skipping. Let's go skipping. Let's go in the, I don't know, the sprinklers or whatever, like that. But when you're angry, it's like, oh yeah, full on, right? It's not love, it's not compassion. So we have control, and I think right now are really what I feel, and I just want to throw this in with this is that right now so many individuals just want to be heard. So many individuals just want to be respected and heard and loved, and they're crying out for it. And this situation is bringing us back to that, but so many people don't see that. They see it as a fight, right, wrong, good or bad, either or, instead of let's love our brothers and our sisters and remember that they are suffering, remember that they're going through something, that there's a lot of pain that's happening in the world right now for everybody in different ways. It's manifesting in different ways. And that really there's a cry for love. So love the enemy because the enemy's the one who's crying out for the most love. And look to your brothers and sisters and say, I love you. I love you. I love you. Doesn't matter what you say. You can throw stones. You can beat me. You can crucify me. I don't have to be your cup of coffee, but that doesn't matter because I love you. So love is the key. God is the key. There are different keys that we can get in life, right? I watched this movie. You know me, I like to refer to movies. They're so good. I like movies and I like reading. Okay, so um the movie, it's called Ready Player One. As a matter of fact, if you guys haven't watched it, watch it. It's pretty relevant. We're not in that era completely yet. We're not 100% ingrained in the digital era. We don't have 100% 3D and everybody's disconnected from natural nature. But in that movie, they are. They have their little things on, and that's how they escape the real world. They want to live in the digital world completely. Okay. But keys open the door to the golden egg. That's the whole thing, right? Now we have keys, and we have keys to open up the golden egg, to get to the golden egg, and the golden egg being what? Your heart. The golden egg being your connection to love and God. Okay. Golden keys. Love is a key. Forgiveness is a key. Compassion is a key. If you thought of these as keys that open up the portal to God, then you can ask yourself, what keys do I need? What keys, not do I need, what keys, I don't want to say need, that's not the right word. Let me correct myself. What keys have I not utilized to open up the door? What keys have I not utilized? Because they're in you: forgiveness, gratitude, love, humility, compassion. Those are the keys that are going to lead you to God. Not war, not fighting, not blaming, not pointing fingers, all of these things that we do, um, I myself included, but to use the keys and to get those keys and to open up each door. And if you watch that movie, because you've watched it, Mario, you said interesting film, is that at the end, when he went to get the golden egg, he realized that it wasn't about this digital world, but it was about the heart, the childlike innocence. He opened the door, and when he went to find it, he found himself, you know, in his childlike innocence. He said, I like to keep this kid here. Why? Because that's where it started. It started with our childlike innocence, our openness to the world, to how do we want to create. When we were kids, we weren't bashing each other. I mean, there was, but before we knew how to bash each other, there was just this curiosity of life before we were fully programmed to fight amongst each other, to see ourselves separate. I see kids playing with bugs. I mean, I've seen kids play with cockroaches. They creep me out a little bit. See, as an adult, I'll be creeped out about that. But they were playing with cockroaches, and they don't know until someone says, what are you doing? That's growth, right? Until someone gives them the distinction, they're just there. The curiosity of life. That's the golden age. Get back to that childlike innocence that connects us into God. And yeah, if you want to come back to Jesus, remember when the kids ran up to him and the his apostles like, get away. And he's like, no, 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 these two are mine, right? They're God's. Let the kids come. Why? Because it reminds us of that purity that we possess inside. We have an innocence still there. It resonates within us. We can't get there until we use our keys. So use the keys, utilize them. Okay. Open up those doors. All right. So I hope this was helpful. um, and you guys, I just want to say that I'm very, very honored. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully, I'm supporting you in some way. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out to me, spiritandcoffee@gmail.com. I'm sorry, spiritandbrew@gmail.com. You are always, always welcome. Good morning, Betty, to reach out to me there. I just finished, darn it, to reach me there. And I love you guys so much. You're welcome, Artie. Lots of love to you out there in London, and prayers, please, you guys. Let's pray together. Hold it in your heart. Send those prayers out in waves, because God can cure all, right? And through us and our prayers, I feel we have um, the power to remember that. Okay, so I love you guys. Have the most fantastic, fun, freaky, funky Friday. We can pray for you. Do you have anything specific? Thank you, Artie. I've never been asked that. That's Thank you for thinking of me. Um, I just feel like the whole entire world's my family. So, just pray that I find clarity in how I get to engage in spirit and coffee, because I want to make sure that I'm providing value to you guys. That's really at the end of the day. That's why I do this. It's like it's funny because like I have a full-time job. I have all these other things going on in my life, but I do this because I really want to support humanity in some way, give back in some way, and pray that the words that come to me are, as true as possible can be, as authentic, I want to say, and as vulnerable as can be. Um, yeah, that's really interesting. Thanks, Suze. I appreciate you. The whole world is family because we are all God's children. Yes. Thanks, Betty. I'll catch you on the rebound. I love you. Sorry, what is your name? My name is Natalie. I go by AKA Kamala, AKA Nisha. You're welcome, Mario. And God bless you guys. Many, many, many loves and prayers and grace and all that stuff. I'm gonna go enjoy life. I love my life. I'm very, very blessed and very grateful. God is great. Remember that. Okay. Love you guys. See you tomorrow. Or no, I'm going to see you guys. One day I'm going to do a live spirit and coffee on my podcast and invite people to call in. I want to do that. It's going to happen. I promise you. Um, and so I will see you guys on Monday. Love you. Bye.